Aloha, I'm Hawai'i. Grateful to be sharing this space with all of you to discuss this very important issue regarding housing. And from my community-based experience, I was taught that me sitting on the panel is not only, I'm not the expert, that if we're gonna come up with viable policy solution, that it's a collaborative effort, that those kinds of solutions, which include community feedback, are the best solutions to last long term. So my role on this panel is to kind of talk about the historical perspective of Native Hawaiian disposition. And I should let you know that I'm not coming from a place of victimization or entitlement, but to set the tone that, to give you the proper framework, because I think it's lacking in our decisions at the state level, and of course, as you know, on the federal level. We don't want to go there. But what is clear is that in order for us to make viable policy decisions, we have to take a look at the historical context of Hawaii's land tenure system. Prior to Western contact, there are fundamental differences between the way Native Hawaiians foresee land and the way Westerners see land. There are significant differences. You know, Native Hawaiians view land as subsistent, to which to survive by, you know, land is to feed us, to survive, versus American types of property systems. It's more of land use. How are we making best use of land? Are we developing, or, you know, we gotta use every single piece of land to make sure that we're using it appropriately. And even in the American property system, there's this exclusion, the right to exclude. And that's very different from a Native Hawaiian perspective of land tenure system. Native Hawaiians believe that land was not owned by a person. Resources were shared by the community. People were there to occupy and use the land to feed their families. So already from the onset, there was a conflict. So already you can see the differences. So what we also have to recognize is that a great injustice did take place here. In 1893, 1.8 million acres of land were transferred to United States government following the illegal overthrow of Hawaii. Now, I'm not here to dispute whether the state still exists. I'm just putting that argument out there to let you know that it still has not been rectified in the past. From the 1.8 million acres of land, those were later ceded to the state to be held in trust for the benefit of the people. So the state, in its current framework, does not own the land. They're actually trustees of public lands. So what exists now? The laws are pretty clear. To every public land, Native Hawaiians have priority rights in those lands for gathering. Trust lands are held in trust for the betterment of conditions of Native Hawaiians. It's not an entitlement, it's a constitutional mandate that the state has to fulfill. So, given the constitutional framework, why are we here? Because we have the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act, which according to federal law, the Hawaiian Homes has 200,000 acres of land. So why is the waiting list so long? Why aren't we making use and why aren't we directing resources to the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act? So those are when I'm looking at the displacement of Native Hawaiians, I'm looking at why aren't we making effective use of state resources? What are the things that are influencing our state to continue this way? So and this is not to bash any agency or any elected official, is to take a critical look at what we're doing. And are we making effective use of our resources? Are we funding these departments appropriately? Are we staffing them appropriately? And on the legislative side, do our elected officials have the appropriate training to understand the current laws? Because in my mind, the laws are pretty clear. So why is it then that we keep on making policy decisions that act against the best interest of Native Hawaiians? And when you're talking about land, it's not only confined to land, it's confined to water resources. So why are our water resources, which if we were to build development, would support development for Native Hawaiian housing, for example, being directed other places? So I'm glad that we're at this conference. I'm hoping to start opening up people's minds so we can start really critically looking at what we're doing. So what I see from my perspective on the grassroots level is that we have to all get on the same page on what the correct historical narrative is. The narrative that we agree on is going to direct what kind of policy decisions that we come to. The second point I want to cover is there enough community representation at the policy level? And I'm going to tell you no, okay, because I have experience in that area. And what that looks like is when you have outsiders coming in and telling you what to do with your resources. So what is the solution to that? Is do the proper outreach in the community to engage them and ask them what's gonna be best for your community. Community is almost, I think they're the most important stakeholder to be at the table if you want long-term projects to last in the community. The other point I want to talk about is there implicit bias in our leaders? And implicit bias is when you overtly say that you're not discriminatory, that you're not racist, but your policy decisions, your laws show otherwise, right? So not funding the Hawaiian Homes or Department of Hawaiian Homelands with the sufficient amount of funding, but you're saying that you're not discriminatory, draw some criticism from me. Is the Office of Hawaiian Affairs fully funded in order to meet their trust obligations? We have all these different types of structures in place that can be improved, but that's where we need to criticize what's happening and why aren't those agencies getting what they need. And when you don't fund these agencies, they become ineffective. That's why we have thousands and thousands of people on the waiting list. And and is special interest helping the state to violate its trust obligation in support of Native Hawaiians? Because my understanding, I don't have the data with me right now, but my understanding of the data is that our Native Hawaiians take up a large majority of the homeless population. So why is that? Because we've got all these resources in place. What's happening on the ground level? So I guess, we do have some leaders in here. And the other thing is, what I also see as an issue is, do our elected officials currently have the training in Native Hawaiian rights? And if so, if not, you don't quite understand those laws, and what can we do to support you so you're better equipped to lead us under the current framework in Hawaii? So I think that's it from me for now. Thank you.